Tonight, a new front in the urgent wildfire fight. Flames rapidly roar towards a community north of Vancouver. A local state of emergency puts thousands on edge.
A west-facing steep slope. This is going to be the huge challenge for our crews.
And a sweltering new summer forecast from Environment Canada. Why one province's wildfire response is now under investigation, and how burnout is burdening crews on the front lines.
I don't believe that there's ever going to be enough firefighters to put out the types of fires that we're facing.
The dramatic new measures taken in Los Angeles to clamp down on protests.
Donald Trump's government isn't protecting our communities, they're traumatizing our communities.
Plus, the calls to help Canadian seniors downsize.
They many times need to make that move, but they're looking at all the costs involved.
And diving into a record-breaking milestone.
She destroys it again!
Canadian summer MacIntosh's sensational swimming spree.
World record again!
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening. Thousands more are on high alert in Western Canada tonight as a new line of battle emerges on the exhausting front lines of a punishing firefight. In Squamish, BC, there's a local state of emergency as an out-of-control fire that is rapidly spreading threatens people and properties in the community about 60 kilometers north of Vancouver. The fire is now about the size of 12 football fields. That fire, one of 90 burning across the province. In neighboring Alberta, dozens of raging fires continue to burn, but the province is getting reinforcements all the way from Australia. About 100 firefighters and specialists are on their way to Canada for 5 weeks. All of this happening as Environment Canada revealed its summer forecast today, predicting hotter than normal temperatures for much of the country, which is likely to fuel a prolonged wildfire season, particularly in the prairies, where one provincial government, Saskatchewan's, was slammed today for its response.
It's unprecedented for us not to have a more responsive response when we say we've got a problem and people need to be fed.
CTV's Alison Bamford starts us off.
And that's my snow machine and my neighbor's place.
A video sent from a community member, the reason Carrie Lentowitz knows she lost her house in a wildfire.
I've kind of come to the conclusion that, we were lucky enough to have something to lose.
A large part of Denair Beach in northern Saskatchewan burned last week. An evacuation order is still in place.
I'm hoping that I can go back and help rebuild as soon as possible.
Today, evacuees from La Ronge and surrounding areas got word they can head back home later this week. Bus loads have already returned to Pelican Narrows.
They were excited and ready to go.
Sarah Swan might be one of the last to go back. She's coordinating the return of other evacuees, but she knows her home is safe thanks to doorbell camera video.
What are you most looking forward to once you get home?
Home-cooked meals.
Saskatchewan's ombudsman says it will be investigating the province's wildfire response after the office received countless calls from evacuees unable to access support and information from the Public Safety Agency.
It's unprecedented for us to have evacuees reaching out saying that they're not getting food and they're not having a place to stay.
The demand outweighed or overwhelmed the ability to keep up. And so now we've had to staff up and we will address it.
Saskatchewan asked Ottawa for supplies that can be used once communities start to rebuild. The province hasn't asked for any other military assistance right now, saying water bombers and firefighting resources are needed the most, and the military can't provide those. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
And firefighters in Manitoba are working tirelessly, battling extreme conditions. CTV's Alex Carpa spoke to one of them about the challenges and the warnings for the season ahead.
Getting this close to the flames is now a daily occurrence for Kyle Scribe. He's fighting a fire near his community of Pimachikamak Cree Nation.
That fire moves fast, and it's pretty dangerous for our firefighters to be out there.
He and his team at the Cross Lake Band Fire Department have been tasked with putting out fires and identifying hot spots around the community.
It's tiring because you have to work fast, and so that fire doesn't get away on you.
But fires at times have been getting away from them, which he says is exhausting.
Your mind says you want to do it, but after a couple of weeks, your body says you can't, right?
Hundreds of firefighters like Kyle are working around the clock so people can return to their homes. Around 21,000 people in Manitoba have been displaced from their communities. And as wildfires rage on, there could be more evacuations. It's been a demanding time for many firefighters, not just here in Manitoba, but across much of the country. There are over 220 active fires across Canada, with over 100 of those deemed out of control.
I don't believe that there's ever going to be enough firefighters to put out the types of fires that we're facing across our country.
Canada has seen a reduction of firefighters over the last 3 years, down more than 2,000 across the country. The majority of those leaving are much-needed volunteer firefighters.
We're asking these individuals to be gone for days, weeks, and we saw in 23 and 2024 for a month at a time. That's where the sustainability comes into question.
And the early start to this wildfire season means for those on the front lines like Kyle Scribe, there may be a long and grueling summer ahead. Alex Carpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
To the standoff in Los Angeles and the new overnight curfew now in place downtown to try and stop the violence on day 5 of demonstrations against immigration raids. U.S. President Donald Trump remains defiant after deploying more troops to the city than are currently serving in Syria and Iraq. Late tonight, California's governor blasting the move.
We do not want our streets militarized by our own armed forces, not in LA, not in California, not anywhere.
CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbin with the war of words and the clashes on the ground.
An extraordinary show of force on the streets of Los Angeles. More than 2,000 National Guard now protecting immigration agents as they make arrests, along with the Marine Battalion here on the orders of the U.S. President, who defended his decision to send in the troops.
Well, if we didn't do it, there wouldn't be a Los Angeles. It'd be burning today.
In a city of immigrants for days now, there have been peaceful protests against the government's controversial immigration raids, but also clashes with riot police, tear gas, stun gun grenades, and overnight looting. LA police insist they have this under control, and the mayor says, end the raids and you'll end the chaos.
I take it back to raids that took place on Friday and the uncertainty and the fear and the fact that families across the city are terrified.
California's governor tried to block the president's use of the military, calling it an abuse of power.
Again, just so Donald Trump can pound his chest and act like he is in control. He is creating chaos. He is sowing chaos.
As these immigration raids spread from Texas to New York and Chicago, Donald Trump ripped into the governor and Democratic officials, suggesting without evidence
They paid troublemakers, agitators, and insurrectionists. They're engaged in this willful attempt to nullify federal law and aid the occupation of the city by criminal invaders.
The Pentagon says the troops will remain for 60 days, costing Americans $134 million. Before a show of U.S. military might at Fort Bragg, the president danced off the stage, defiant. In 2020, President Trump wanted to put down protests in U.S. cities by invoking the Insurrection Act. The fear among some is he might just do it this time. Omar?
All right, Joy, thank you. A U.S. federal appeals court is allowing Donald Trump to keep most sweeping tariffs on U.S. trading partners, including Canada, China, and Mexico, in place for now. The court will review a lower court's decision that blocked the tariffs on the grounds that Trump exceeded his authority, a decision Trump challenged. Canada's Auditor General delivered several reports today scrutinizing spending on big-ticket items, including the controversial ArriveCan app you may remember from during the pandemic, and which we'll dig into in just a moment. But we start with her warning on the soaring cost of incoming fighter jets and what it means for Canada's order of 88 F-35 planes from America's Lockheed Martin. Here's CTV's Michael Couture.
Even before it got off the ground, the cost of Canada's future fighter jet program was already soaring.
Their original estimate of $19 billion was based on outdated information.
That was in 2022, but 2 years later, the price tag had already climbed to $27.7 billion.
This figure did not include other essential elements needed for full operational capability, such as certain infrastructure upgrades and advanced weapons.
You don't buy an airplane without weapons, and you don't buy an airplane without the garage to put it in.
Retired Major General David Fraser says at a time when defense issues are affecting our relationship with the U.S., Canada needs to make a decision.
If we don't buy this airplane, what airplane are we going to fly inside a NORAD or inside a Golden Dome that's going to be able to, interoperate with the Americans?
And the defense minister says those are factors Canada is weighing.
There are many countries that are participating in the F-35 development, engineering, industrial benefits, construction. We are all in this F-35 project right now.
Some opposition MPs say it's time to look for an alternative.
Boondoggle and incompetence. I don't think you can call the F-35 anything but that.
The Auditor General also noted Canada doesn't have enough pilots or technicians for the planes.
And you have to know things about cyber and electronic warfare that technicians did not have to know about in the past. So this is where my concern would be.
Prime Minister Mark Carney did order a review of the F-35 purchase after the U.S. started a trade war with Canada. The results are expected in the summer, and if the government proceeds, the first jets could be delivered in 2026. Omar.
Michael Couture in Ottawa tonight. In another stinging report, the Auditor General found that when the federal government awarded millions of dollars in contracts to the company behind the controversial ArriveCAN app, it failed to follow security and procurement rules. But as CTV's Judy Trin reports, that wasn't the only bungled deal.
The Auditor General found that federal workers ignored rules for nearly a decade when they gave contracts to GC Strategies.
Federal organizations frequently disregarded government procurement rules that promote fairness, transparency, and value for Canadians.
GC Strategies was responsible for the massively over-budget ArriveCAN app. Before that, it worked with about 30 federal departments. Since 2015, it won 106 contracts worth more than $92 million, even though its contractors were often not qualified.
Canadians still don't know who did the work, what was done, if they were qualified, if they had security clearances. This is complete government incompetence.
As a member of Canada's new government and a new member of Parliament, we will uphold higher standards.
GC Strategies has been banned from working with the federal government for 7 years, but the problem is widespread. It's likely many government managers aren't applying due diligence.
Is it that there are just too many rules that just keep getting added on audit after audit so that folks don't understand all of the rules, or are people trying to go around them to make the process faster?
The federal procurement minister says public servants are being retrained to follow the rules to ensure taxpayers are getting value for their money. Judy Trin, CTV News, Ottawa.
Canada has imposed sanctions on 2 hardline far-right Israeli ministers over comments regarding the West Bank.
These 2 individuals promoted extremist settler violence, and it has to stop.
A joint statement with allies Australia, New Zealand, Norway, and the UK says the 2 men have incited extremist violence and serious abuses of Palestinian human rights. Extremist rhetoric and the creation of new Israeli settlements is appalling and dangerous. Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand also stated Canada remains unwavering in its support of Israel. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is urging Canada and the others to reverse the measures, which include a travel ban and the freezing of assets. CTV News asked Global Affairs if the Israeli ministers have any Canadian assets and whether either has traveled to Canada in the past decade. We have yet to receive a response. Hundreds gathered and lit candles mourning the victims of one of the worst mass shootings in Austria. A 21-year-old gunman stormed into his former school this morning, killing 10 people, and then took his own life. He carried out the attack with 2 weapons which appear to have been acquired legally. No word on a motive. 3 defense teams have wrapped up their final arguments in the sexual assault trial of 5 former World Junior hockey players. And as CTV's Heather Wright reports, we now know when the judge will read the verdict.
Day 2 of closing submissions began this morning with the lawyer for Carter Hart accusing the complainant in this case of having an agenda and giving evidence that was, quote, deliberately slippery. The goal is to obscure because this witness knows the truth will not serve her agenda, Megan Savard told the judge. Court has now heard from 4 of the 5 defense attorneys, and all have attacked the credibility of the complainant, known as EM. Alex Fermenton's lawyer accused EM of knowingly lying under oath about how much she weighed at the time of the events in June 2018. He told the judge it should concern you that the complainant doesn't respect the oath. Daniel Brown also argued EM decided to accuse the 5 players of sexual assault in order to cover up the decisions she made that night, and changed her story to go after a financial settlement from Hockey Canada. It's a lot easier to explain to her friends and family that people did bad things to her rather than take responsibility for the choices she made. During her closing submissions, Dylan Dubé's lawyer, Lisa Carnelos, told the judge that Dubé's sexual encounter with EM was brief and consensual. She acknowledged that Dubé did not mention to police that he slapped the complainant's buttocks, but Carnelos argued that omission is not evidence of a guilty mind, which the Crown is expected to argue. This case hinges on whether what happened in room 209 at a London hotel in June 2018 was consensual. The complainant testified she was coerced into performing sexual acts, was drunk, and too terrified to leave the room. The defense has tried to paint EM as a willing and active participant who has changed her story over the course of both the investigation and the trial. The accused have all pleaded not guilty.
The defense will continue their closing submissions tomorrow, followed by the Crown. The judge said today she will deliver verdicts in this case on July 24th. Heather Wright, CTV News, London, Ontario.
Coming up.
A lot of times it just economics doesn't work.
Why some seniors are choosing not to downsize and what it could mean for the housing market. Downsizing usually means moving to a smaller home, but many seniors are now choosing to stay put. CTV's Adrian Gabriel looks into why.
Yes, hello?
Effie Panagiotopoulos's parents have spent the last 5 years coming to terms with their new reality.
My mom was diagnosed with dementia.
Jim and Anna Panagiotopoulos built this 4-story bedroom home in Toronto's East End in 1988. Now in their 80s, their staircase has become problematic. They've had to pay for a lift to be installed. Sky-high real estate prices and their own cost of living has made downsizing feel out of reach.
They many times need to make that move, but they're looking at all the costs involved.
It is great pleasure for me to be here.
In March, the Carney government announced the elimination of the GST for first-time home buyers on properties under $1 million.
If a senior wants to downsize, move into a new condo, they are assessed GST. Here in Ontario, they're assessed PST.
This report, issued this month by the Missing Middle Initiative, is calling on Ottawa's GST rebate to be offered up to all, including seniors who are purchasing owner-occupied homes, and calling on provincial governments to match the rebate with incentives of their own.
That would shave up to 13%.
In an email, an official with Canada's Department of Finance wrote to CTV News that this GST rebate is intended to help first-time homebuyers enter the housing market rather than people who already own a home.
Ironically, one of the best ways to help first-time homebuyers is to actually help seniors and help them downsize.
For Panagiotopoulos, who also works as a real estate agent, without a senior's tax break for her parents, given their current situation, a move simply wouldn't make sense.
And sometimes it doesn't add up.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't add up. Pay all those expenses to make a move now from a 2-story to a bungalow. I mean, the gap is not that big. So where do they go?
The Canadian Centre for Economic Analysis estimates that here in Ontario alone, there's 4.4 million rooms sitting empty in part because of seniors who won't, or in some cases, can't afford to downsize. Adrian Gabriel, CTV News, Toronto.
Still ahead. We'll tell you about the rare nighttime spectacle tonight in the spring sky. The so-called strawberry moon is lighting up the sky tonight with an amber glow. A strawberry moon is the final full moon of spring, and there it is rising over the Parthenon in Athens. The moon is named after the wild strawberries that ripen this time of year. Some sad news from the entertainment world tonight. Former Much Music and Music Plus host Juliette Powell has died.
We're right here in Ottawa, so this party's the kind of celebration for that as well.
Born in New York before moving to Montreal with her mother, Powell became the first black woman to be crowned Miss Canada in 1989. She went on to become one of the few diverse VJs in the 90s. Powell later became a media expert, author, and business advisor. She died last week from complications from acute bacterial meningitis. Juliette Powell was 54 years old. Still ahead.
Here she comes.
The Canadian teen who can't stop smashing world records. Summer MacIntosh is making big waves and stealing headlines around the globe. The Canadian swimming superstar has broken 2 world records in just 3 days. CTV's John Venevali-Rao on her stunning run.
Here she comes.
Summer MacIntosh has broken records before, but this really was a moment to savor, ending a 200-meter medley faster than any woman on the planet.
It is! She destroys it again! The first woman ever under 2:06 in the 200-meter individual medley.
And afterwards, rather humble about it.
I mean, overall, really happy with that time and always just trying to keep pushing forward.
Under 30 seconds.
It wasn't the first time the crowd was on their feet at the Canadian swimming trials in Greater Victoria. On Saturday, MacIntosh smashing another world record in the 400-meter freestyle.
World record again!
I just feel like I'm witnessing history, which is pretty awesome.
MacIntosh, who's now 18, has been crushing it at the trials. Also breaking her own Canadian record in the 800-meter freestyle. It's been a joy to watch.
Some, groundbreaking performances. You can't say, any less than that deserves the headlines and the plaudits that she's getting.
This all comes after a spectacular Olympics for MacIntosh last summer, winning 3 gold medals and a silver. While swimming's long been popular in Canada, there's no question MacIntosh's success is giving the sport a boost.
She's become a household name, which means swimming is now in households. People are talking about swimming. Young children are coming along in the stands with posters of Summer.
When I see it, I feel motivated to break my own personal records. So I feel like that's really important to me that I get to see that.
As for those records in Victoria, MacIntosh says they'll give her a boost in confidence going into the World Championships in Singapore, which begin later next month. John Venevali-Rao, CTV News, Toronto.
Incredible athlete. That's a snapshot of this Tuesday for all of us at CTV National News. Thank you for watching. Good night and see you tomorrow.